you guys realize that there has not been a single signing after Gareth Bale whose transfer amount was more than 100 million and can be considered a successful signing for the club? Allow me to elaborate a little on this. So what can be considered a successful signing? So basically, when a club signs a player for a certain amount or even for free, the club would expect some return from the player side in terms of performances. And as a viewer or as a football fan, we also somewhat understand what those expectations are. Let me explain this to you through an example. Chelsea paid 115 million to Inter Milan to sign Romelu Lukaku, and they wanted him to be the focal point on Chelsea's attack and their main goal scorer for at least next 3 or 4 years. And Lukaku was not only flop in terms of his goal scoring, but he also gave a negative interview, became a hated player among Chelsea fans, and when Chelsea wanted to move him out of the club, they could not get an adequate transfer fee for the player. So a flop in every sense. Now an example of a successful signing. Bayern Munich bought Robert Lewandowski for free from the biggest rivals. Lewandowski gave his most productive years to Bayern Munich, became their second highest goal scorer, broke Gerd Müller's record for highest number of goals in a single season in Bundesliga, almost won a Ballon d'Or, and won every trophy there is to win for Bayern Munich, including the Champions League. Not bad for a free transfer, right? Of course, his ending with the club could have been better, but I wanted to share an example which is not perfect in every sense. But you get the point. There are certain expectations that a player need to fulfill in order to be considered a successful signing for the club. And if you look at today's market, every other player's transfer amount is close to 100 million or more than that. And after their signing is completed, we talk about their off-the-field issues more than their performance on the field. And when I see this drama, one signing that comes to my mind is Gareth Bale's transfer to Real Madrid. And I completely understand that he was not the perfect signing. There are many issues that one can point out in terms of his Real Madrid career, like his injuries, his issues with the fans, or lack of professionalism. But why we bring Gareth Bale to this discussion is because he was the first player to be signed for 100 million or more, and he had that actual pressure of being a 100 million player. And I for one believe that Gareth Bale, whatever he did, or however his ending was at the club, he was a player who was actually worth 100 million at that point, and he took efforts to prove that. I still remember that Daniel Levy was adamant on not letting him leave, but somehow Perez pulled it off and brought him in the transfer deadline day, and the media went crazy because of the transfer amount. You see, back in the day, 100 million was a big deal, and I remember crazy discussions in the media like no player is worth that amount. Cristiano Ronaldo also moved from Man U to Madrid a couple of years back for 94 million euros, which is also a huge amount. But Cristiano was Cristiano. Him and Messi were perceived differently in the eyes of football fans and the media, and he did enough to prove his value. Not to forget, he already won a Champions League and a Ballon d'Or with Manchester United. But Bale, because he was the first player to reach that 3-figure mark, the pressure was different. And trust me, the excitement he brought into the Real Madrid games was at a different level. He was an animal back then. With him and Ronaldo, it felt like Real Madrid can score a goal anytime from anywhere. Talking specifically about Bale's performances, he was scoring goals left, right and center. I mean, long distance goals, solo goals, free kicks, headers, cutting in from the left side and shooting a rocket. He scored all kinds of goals. But still, people raised their eyebrows because of the transfer amount. And when he made that crazy run against Barca in the Copa del Rey final and scored the goal to win the final, ending Marc Bartra's career in the process, that's when media started to loosen up a little and started giving Gareth Bale some respect. Bale, alongside Ronaldo and Benzema, was performing really well for Madrid. He was scoring real important goals for the club. Do you remember him scoring the header in the extra time against Atletico in the Champions League final? What a moment for the young player, and what a comeback from Real Madrid. Bale's media game was quite bad. He was never someone to come forward and give interviews in the media and create a positive public image. He used to prove his point on the football field. But then he started getting injured. Of course, he used to come back and score some bangers, but injuries started becoming regular for Gareth Bale, and media was quick to tag him an injury-prone player. But still, Bale, when healthy and available, was performing really well for Madrid. He was scoring goals, winning trophies. Don't forget his extraordinary bicycle kick against Liverpool in the Champions League final of 2017. So if we look at Bale's overall Real Madrid career, he scored 106 goals, won 5 Champions Leagues, 4 Club World Cup, 3 European Super Cups, 3 La Liga titles, 1 Copa del Rey and 3 Spanish Super Cups. Still, many people consider his time at Real Madrid was not a success. So let's have a quick look at the other signings who costed 100 million or more and do the criminal task of comparing their achievements with Gareth Bale's. And while we do this comparison, we have to be on the same page, and you can share your thoughts on the comments if you think that I'm wrong in any way. But for me, to be considered a successful signing, one has to match or overachieve the expectations your fan base, your club had from you before you sign for the club. There has to be some sort of longevity and consistency in terms of your performances as well. So having said that, let's start talking about the signings that costed more than 100 million. So the first player was of course Gareth Bale for 100 million in 2013, but I think we've already established a decent argument for him. So moving on, we don't have any 100 million signing for next couple of years, but in 2016, Manchester United signed Paul Pogba for 105 million euros from Juventus. A lot has been said about Pogba, so I won't be just another person on the list to bash him, but I'm just here to remind the expectations people had from him And what Manchester United got in the end? The 105 million euros paid by United for Pogba was a world record fee at that time, and his arrival at Manchester was a huge deal. You see, Man U was struggling ever since Sir Alex Ferguson departed, and the team and the fans needed someone who can lift their spirits up. The expectations that Manchester United fans had for him was he will be a glimmer of hope for the club. And the people at Man U were hoping to build the project around him and take Man U forward from there on. But in the end, Pogba's time at Manchester was underwhelming. He had off-the-field issues, problem with the coaches. Under no manager could he find a suitable role for him. He also had several injuries. He scored 39 goals in the 226 appearances he made for Manchester United, although he won the World Cup in 2018 but could not match his form he had for the national team with Man U. So we don't have any reasons to say that he was a success at United. And now with the doping case, we don't even know when he would return, and if at all we would be able to see the Pogba of the old. After Pogba, we had 300 million plus transfers in 2017. First was Neymar from Barcelona to PSG for 222 million euros, which still is a world record fee paid by any club. Second was Kylian Mbappe from Monaco to PSG for 180 million euros. And third was Ousmane Dembele from Dortmund to Barcelona for 145 million euros. Let us briefly discuss their times at their club, starting with Dembele. You see, Dembele's signing was the second highest transfer amount paid by any club at that time, obviously after Neymar, but Barcelona made that substantial investment which was not their norm because they wanted to replace Neymar, who just left them earlier in the same transfer window. Now that was going to be hard for obvious reasons, but the idea was that Dembele would eventually reach his potential and prove to be a great signing for the club in long run. But in the end, Dembele's story at Barca was a tale of unfulfilled promises, failing to match the monumental expectations people had for him. And I'm not discounting some impressive moments he had on the pitch, but those were far and few because of the regular occurring injuries he had. And in 185 appearances he made for the club, he scored 40 goals and provided 42 assists, which is not that impressive considering he was supposed to be a prolific winger playing for Barcelona. His time at Camp Nou was marked by a succession of injuries, leaving him on the sidelines for the most important matches. Although he had a decent last season at Barca with 11 goals and 13 assists, but can't say he was a success based on that. So let's see what he'll do at PSG. Now let's talk about Kylian Mbappe. Not to say that he is an unsuccessful signing at PSG would be unfair, but has he reached the potential he was supposed to? And has he delivered what was expected out of him? Is the question here. He joined PSG when he was 18 and was performing well and managed to deliver some great numbers in front of the goal, that too in a consistent basis. Not to forget, he won one World Cup and reached the final of the other. You can pause for a moment and see his stats on the screen. But the case with Mbappe was, his ceiling or the place he was supposed to reach in football was very high. He was supposed to be the next big thing in football after Messi and Ronaldo, and I don't think he has reached that level, not yet at least. You see, PSG were winning before him, and then they spent a huge amount for an 18-year-old kid. Then he came in, and of course he improved the team, but because of the limited competition in the French league, we cannot say that he's the best forward or best winger in the world, even if he becomes the top scorer for PSG for next 10 years. Now don't get me wrong here, he has done a lot for PSG, maybe everything he can do for them in terms of performance on the pitch. But he has had some off-the-field issues, some problems with the management, his transfer saga with Real Madrid, but the biggest of all was he was not able to deliver PSG what they wanted the most, which was the Champions League trophy. So would you consider him a success at PSG? Let me know your thoughts. But talking about Champions League, let's move on to Neymar. If I start talking about Neymar's time at PSG, a half-an-hour video won't be enough to discuss everything that happened there because it was a pure box office move, but a failure overall. Now why I say that is because of a simple reason. Do you remember their Champions League encounter with Barca in 2017 when they won 4-0 at home and got beaten 6-1 away? Well, that away defeat was a tough pill to swallow, and Neymar's performance for Barca was the main reason why PSG got eliminated. Neymar scored twice and maybe gave the most important assist of his career at 95th minute to win that match, but was unhappy in the end because Messi got all the limelight, and PSG would have thought, why not make the most of this opportunity? They can buy this player who not only has the potential to win the Champions League but can one day become the best player in the world. So PSG triggered Neymar's release clause and bought him for 222 million euros, which was a record transfer fee paid by any club then, and it's been 6 years from that incident and no one has still broken that record. And as Uncle Ben says, with great transfer fees comes great responsibilities, which Neymar was unable to fulfill. Why, you ask? Let me share a few reasons. First of all, he had a lot of off-the-field issues, like punching a supporter after being criticized, clashing with his own teammates, criticizing UEFA officials, and much more. Secondly, the injuries. Neymar missed 741 days due to injuries, which is more than like 2 years. I understand injuries are unfortunate and no player should be put under the bus because no one wants to get injured. But I also know that his injuries usually happened when his sister's birthday was close, which also happened to be the most important part of the season. And as a PSG supporter, watching your club getting knocked out in the Champions League and seeing your best player injured and celebrating a birthday in some other country is sad, to be honest. And the most important reason why he was not a success at PSG was unfulfilled potential. You see, Neymar was given a chance to change the course of a club. In PSG, Neymar was given a platform to shine. He was the center of the project. The team was built around him. And I believe if Neymar showed 100% commitment to the club, the course of his career would have been different, and the way PSG is perceived globally would have been a lot better. Now up next, we had two transfers in the year 2018. The first of which was Filipe Coutinho from Liverpool to Barca, and the second was Cristiano Ronaldo from Real Madrid to Juventus. We'll talk about Coutinho's transfer first. Now it's not a surprise that Coutinho to Barca was a flop transfer, but while the deal was happening, it looked like the perfect match. A technically gifted and a creative footballer joining a club that values technical players. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, as it turns out. Now Barca's intention was to improve the team overall. He was not a replacement for any specific player, like in Dembele's transfer. They rather wanted Coutinho to be a major player when Xavi and Iniesta leaves. Coutinho could have learned from the best technical players, and Barcelona would have had a great player for years. But before he left Barca in 2022, Coutinho only managed 70 starts and a total of 106 appearances only. And this is all competitions, not just La Liga and Champions League. He scored 28 goals for Barcelona, and some of them were no doubt spectacular, but in terms of being a mainstay at Barca, he never came close. And unlike his Liverpool days, he never had a specific role in Barcelona. So much so that after just one full season, Barca decided to loan him out to Bayern Munich. And can you guess what happened there? Well, Bayern won every trophy that season, including the Champions League, where they eliminated Barca by scoring 8 goals in one match, where Coutinho scored 2 goals and assisted 1. Then he returned to Barca, but again could not establish his place in the team. Barca then sent him on loan, then eventually sold him to Aston Villa for just 17 million, a sad ending to the third most expensive transfer of all time. Especially considering he was performing great at Liverpool, and in some ways he forced his way out to join Barcelona. And now let's talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo moved from Madrid to Juventus in 2018 for 100 million euros. I completely understand his greatness, and I'm no one to judge his time or give a verdict about it. But I have to finish what I started. So was he a success or a failure at Juventus? Well, the answer lies somewhere in between. Ronaldo was the man who tormented the old lady in the Champions League final a couple of years ago. And just a year before he joined, he eliminated Juventus in the quarter-finals of the Champions League in their home. And Juve fans gave him a standing ovation for his performance. Juve till now have lost 7 Champions League finals, and Mr. Champions League has now arrived to deliver the one trophy that Juventus craved the most. So you can imagine the excitement when he joined the club. And Ronaldo's effect was immediate, not only on the field but off the field as well. Juve gained around 5 million new social media followers within 24 hours of his arrival. The club sold more than 1 million shirts, and their revenue grew close to 60 million after his first season at Juventus. Their commercial deals with companies like Adidas and Jeep were renegotiated and improved. By the time Cristiano left Juventus, they had 113 million social media followers compared to 50 million before he arrived. So on those fronts, he was a success not only for Juventus but for Serie A as a whole. And he was doing great off the field. But listen to some of his stats on the field. Ronaldo was the fastest player to reach 100 goals in Serie A. In total, he scored 101 goals, provided 20 assists in 134 games, which is a goal contribution every 95 minutes. And he had some inspiring performances. Who can forget the flying header he scored versus Sampdoria, or when Juventus needed 3 goals to qualify at the round of 16 versus Atletico, and Ronaldo scored a hat-trick, humiliating Diego Simeone and sending them back to Spain. In his 3 years at Juve, he won 2 Serie A titles, 2 Supercoppa Italia, a Coppa Italia, 2 times Player of the Season, became the most valuable player of Serie A, and the first footballer to finish as a top scorer in 3 of the top 5 leagues. In fact, it's been 2 years since he left Serie A, and still no player has scored more goals than Cristiano since he joined Juventus. So why were people at Juve happy to see him leave? Well, the major reason for that was he was not brought in to win the Serie A or Coppa Italia. Juventus wanted Champions League, which Ronaldo could not deliver. Of course, it was not up to him alone, but the fact still remains Juventus could not win the Champions League with Ronaldo on their team. And the second reason for the sour ending at Juventus was Juve was more than happy to get Ronaldo off the club's wage bill. They were struggling financially after the pandemic, and Ronaldo's 31 million wage was a point of concern. And of course, it was because of the pandemic, but when the people of your club wants you out, I don't think you can call it a successful time spent. Next up, in 2019, we had 200 million plus transfers. First one was Joao Felix from Benfica to Atletico Madrid for 126 million euros, and Antoine Griezmann from Atletico to Barcelona for 120 million euros. Talking about Joao Felix, Atletico paid a huge amount for a 19-year-old Benfica player. Now, when you're a young attacking talent, there will be a lot of expectations, and you will be judged by the number of goals and assists you score. So it was always going to be tough for Joao Felix. So of course, he's been a flop so far. But should we put all the blames on the player? Well, I think his turbulent relationship with Simeone also played a part in his underperformance on the Spanish capital. When Felix arrived, everyone thought that maybe there will be a change in the Simeone philosophy and we will see a more attacking Atletico with Felix leading the line. But with just 9 games into the season, he limped off with an injury, and at that point he only registered 2 goals and 1 assist in La Liga. He came back in late November, where he had to play 2 vital games, but Felix did not start his game against Juve and missed a big chance in the opening 30 minutes against Barca, which Atleti eventually lost 1-0. Later, Simeone publicly criticized Felix, saying talent is not enough, you have to have some commitment. His lack of trust in the player was apparent, although we know that Simeone subs off his attacking players to hold on to his leads, but Felix only completed 90 minutes 8 times over the course of the season. Later in the quarterfinals, when Atleti met RB Leipzig, Felix was on the bench and saw them getting eliminated from the Champions League. So the young player was lacking in confidence, and in some ways his manager was not trusting him. And in the next season, he had a good start. Felix scored 5 and assisted 2 in his first 7 La Liga matches, and added 2 more in the Champions League, but could not continue that form for long. He tested positive for COVID before he picked up a muscle injury. Then for the remaining matches, Felix just managed 2 starts out of 11 games, which were like long spells of ghostly performances and time spent on the bench. Then after the season ended, it became clear that his exit from Wanda Metropolitano was likely. Both Simeone and Atleti CEO admitted that a change of scenery would benefit the player, and then he went for a loan spell at Chelsea, and I don't think we should judge his time there, because the way Chelsea is playing right now, even Prime Pele would look like a flop signing. Now he's at Barca for a year-long loan spell. He had a good start, but let's see what happens. But anyways, another 100 million plus flop signing, this time for Atleti. And now about Antoine Griezmann, another flop signing that Barcelona made. I think Barca should stay away from 100 million plus players. They flop at Camp Nou. They just do. And by now you must know. Anyways, I must remind everyone that people had high hopes from Griezmann. He was flying at Atletico, performing well with the French squad, and although he came third, but he shared the Ballon d'Or podium with Messi and Ronaldo. So after a lot of back and forth, Barca decided to spend 120 million to bring in Griezmann in 2019. And just a reminder that Griezmann announced his arrival with a stupid video which really angered Atleti fans. My man thought he was LeBron James. Anyways, Griezmann at Atletico Madrid was a creative attacker, but he also helped in defense. Basically, he was a hard-working player who helps his team in every way he can. And after spending this huge amount on his signing, Barca would have thought that he will be a sure shot success there. And he was showing some good signs. But to be honest, it never felt like Ernesto Valverde, Barca's coach at the time, planned or even wanted his arrival. And he put Griezmann on the left wing of a 4-3-3 formation, which was not his position. He was used to playing as a second striker, playing off the main striker. And naturally, he was not looking like a good player. But because he showed some glimpses, people had hope that his time at Barca will eventually come. And it was not that he got injured or was not able to get minutes on the pitch. He was playing, but looking clueless. I remember Barca many times struggled in their attack, and Griezmann was nowhere to be found. Or we'll find him on the same place which Messi occupies. He did have a major role to play in Barca's Copa del Rey win of 2020-21, and oddly, that's Griezmann's only domestic trophy in Spain. But he was not able to establish a specific role for him at Barcelona. And although he was not a controversial player, but he had some off-the-field issues at Barca as well. Like when Dembele made a video where he made some racial remarks at Japanese hotel staff, and Griezmann was a part of that video laughing, saying nothing but laughing. Barca even had a Japanese sponsor at that time. He angered a lot of people and had to come forward and apologize. And that was the highlight of his 3 years spent at Barca. Well, jokes apart, he also scored 35 goals, but I really feel that if Griezmann would have joined Barca at some other point, he would have been a good signing. But with Messi on the field, he was not able to find a proper position that would suit his style of play. And then came COVID, and Barca was really struggling in terms of their finances, and Griezmann's wages was a huge concern. Then Barca loaned him out back to Atletico, who then realized that even they don't want his humongous salary, and then it became a really awkward situation, with Atletico refusing to play him often enough to trigger a mandatory purchase clause, and reports saying Barca were exploring legal options to force the sale anyway. He spent his year on loan at Atleti, and then finally Barca sold him for 20 million to Atletico, taking a financial hit of 100 million on the player. And he's doing well at this point, but a player who was wanted by many big clubs in Europe spent 3 unsuccessful years in Barcelona. 3 years which would have been his prime. The third signing of 2019 was the most anticipated signing of that club, and everyone believed that he would be a guaranteed success there. And let's say that did not happen. The player I'm referring here is Eden Hazard. Real Madrid paid close to 140 million euros to bring Hazard from Chelsea. What can I say about his signing, man? I feel bad for him. Ever since Cristiano left Madrid, the fans, the coaches, the management, everyone were waiting for a player who could raise their excitement levels, who can make people get out of their seats. And Hazard was supposed to be that player. He was the Galactico Madrid fans waited for a long time. Zinedine Zidane, the Madrid coach at that time, was a fan of Hazard and himself demanded his signing. And Hazard on multiple occasions showed interest towards joining Real Madrid, and he was supposed to fit perfectly on the left side of Zidane's attack. And he left Chelsea on a good note, gave them a great last season with 30 plus goal contributions, and provided them an adequate transfer amount to join the club of his dreams. Chelsea were happy for him, people at Madrid were excited to see him play. This was supposed to be the perfect signing, and it turned out to be a disaster. Madrid had to terminate his contract before his last season. Yes, it was that bad, and everyone knows what happened. And if you don't know, he was injured and could not play with any consistency throughout his time at Real Madrid. Many criticized him because he was overweight when he came in. He accepted that. He said when he's off season he gains weight and also loses very fast when he starts training. And it was looking like that. I mean, he was not at his best, but the Hazard of Chelsea with crazy dribbles and incisive passes, he was doing those things in the initial days. Then he got a minor hamstring injury and he was slowly getting to his pace, and there were no reasons to worry because he was showing some good signs. But one match changed everything. I still remember that Champions League encounter against PSG in November 2019. Hazard was looking sharp, he was floating in that match. But PSG's Thomas Meunier, who was also his Belgian teammate, swept Hazard's leg as he spun away from the fullback. Hazard's ankle got trapped awkwardly and he could hardly walk as he was escorted off the pitch. That foul would go on to change the course of Eden Hazard's footballing career, and it did not even look that serious at that time. But unfortunately for Hazard, Meunier broke his ankle that he had fractured a few years ago at Chelsea, and this time he could not recover completely. And Mourinho's quote about Hazard comes to my mind. While he was at Chelsea, he said that the way match after match he's being punished by opponents and he's not been protected by referees, maybe one day we won't have Eden Hazard. Anyways, he came back around March 2020 and got injured again. It was an ankle injury this time. After recovering from that, he was diagnosed with COVID-19, and this would happen repeatedly. He would come back, play a couple of matches and get injured again. But because of the positive attitude he showed, fans were on his side and wanted him to do good. But in May 2021, Madrid was eliminated by Chelsea in the Champions League semi-finals, and Hazard was pictured laughing with his Chelsea teammates, which was not appreciated by the fans and the media. And then he went to Euros with Belgium, and let's say he didn't light up the field. And then when the 21-22 season began, Carlo Ancelotti replaced Zidane, and people thought that this could be positive for Hazard because Ancelotti is a good man manager and he chose Hazard to be his left winger in the initial matches, so it was looking good. But the problem was Eden Hazard could not perform like he used to, and because Hazard's form was dipping, Ancelotti started giving Vinicius some playing time, and Vinicius performed well. He made a formidable partnership with Benzema, he was scoring and assisting on a consistent basis, and slowly it became clear to everyone that Vinicius should be the mainstay at left side of Madrid's attack, and Hazard with his huge salary was now expendable. A sad story in the end. In the 4 years he was at Real Madrid, he just managed 76 appearances. He scored 7 goals and 12 assists, and he got injured 18 times. And although he won every trophy there, including the Champions League, but we all know he was not the main contributor. So we can blame his injuries all day long, but in the end he was another 100 million plus flop signing. So 2019 is done, and there were no 100 billion transfers in 2020. So let's move on to 2021, where we had 2 transfers. First was Lukaku for 115 million euros from Inter Milan to Chelsea. Second was Jack Grealish for 117 million euros from Aston Villa to Manchester City. So first up, Lukaku. Before joining Chelsea, he had a great stint at Inter Milan, where he won Scudetto and also the Italian Cup, scoring 78 in 132 appearances, also providing 23 assists within 2 years. He won the Footballer of the Year in Italy and Player of the Year for Inter Milan in 2021. So great stint overall, and no one was surprised when Chelsea bought him to be the main man in the attack, and the price Chelsea paid for him was understandable. But Chelsea just won the Champions League last year without a proper number 9. They beat good teams like Manchester City and Real Madrid on the way, so it was not like Chelsea was struggling in terms of goals. But with Lukaku, they wanted to find a balance in the team so they can match the teams like City and Liverpool, who have been above Chelsea for some time domestically. And Lukaku had a decent start where he scored like 7 goals in 18 appearances, but he was not able to establish his place on the team. And here are the reasons why. First up, there was a difference between how Lukaku wanted to play and how Chelsea's coach Thomas Tuchel wanted him to play. He was better off holding the ball and playing with the second striker, but at Chelsea he did not have a player like Lautaro Martinez. He also had the ankle injury, the COVID issues, and Tuchel also started dropping him from the starting 11. But still, the feeling was that he'll come good eventually. But then came his infamous interview with Sky Italia, and I think that broke the relationship between Lukaku and Thomas Tuchel, and also with the Chelsea fans. And I won't explain the whole interview, but here are a few pointers to get the gist of it. He said stuff like, I think the boss has decided to play a different formation, and I'm not happy with the situation, but it's my job and I mustn't give up. He added, I always said that I love Inter, and I'll play for them again. I hope from the bottom of my heart to go back to Inter, not at the end of my career, but when I'm still at a good level to win more trophies. And to be fair with Lukaku, this video was shot while he was sitting at the bench for Chelsea and came out while he was playing and just scored a goal versus Brighton. The relation between Thomas Tuchel and Lukaku seemed broken, and Chelsea fans started hating him. Lukaku was low on confidence, and he comes to me as a player who needs a lot of confidence and backing from his manager in order to perform well, which was clearly not going to happen at Chelsea. And just after 1 year, where he just managed 10 goals in 36 appearances, he was loaned back to Inter. So Lukaku is done. Now let's talk about Jack Grealish. There are so many high-profile signings that City and Guardiola have made, and Jack Grealish's is the highest one. Now you guys tell me, has he proved his worth? Now if I'm being honest, it's still too early to judge, but he's not up there. I cannot say he is a successful signing as of now. Let me explain why. See, when he was playing for Aston Villa, he was like that crown prince. He was a creative attacking player who came from their academy, and he would do what he wanted on the ball. Crazy dribbling, great creative attacking play, and superb finishes. You'll find it all when you see his Aston Villa highlights. And then he made his big money move to Manchester City, and honestly, it felt like he was out of place in his first season. In his first season, he made 34 appearances, scoring 4 and assisting 3 in all comps. Now he is a creative attacking player and we should not be judging him by goals and assists. Okay, but we understand what Pep demands from his players is very specific. He's not like you go out there and do your thing. Guardiola's players exactly know their role on the field, and us as viewers somewhat understand if the coach and the players are on the same page or not. And Jack Grealish did not look comfortable playing Guardiola ball. He took too many touches on the ball, and Pep wanted him to drive at the opposition defenders. But I'll say this, over time, Grealish learned to be more decisive in his final third actions, and was slowly becoming a player that fits in Guardiola's system. So in his second season, which was Manchester City's best season till date, they won the treble that year, and in that season, he was a mainstay at the left side of Guardiola's attack. His output in front of goal was not the best. He scored 5 goals and 7 assists in 44 appearances, but he was still creating chances. He would drive at the defenders, creating havoc at the front. He created 35 chances in the Champions League alone, which was most by any English player in a single season. And I don't want to be harsh on him because he seems like a fun guy. But if I'm being honest, Grealish was not the main reason for City's success that year. And players like Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, Rodri, Gundogan, and even Bernardo Silva played more important roles. But because he had a good last season, I was hoping that he will improve and will have a bigger role to play this season. But he is facing a new challenge this time around. The 28-year-old has just started 2 out of the 11 matches City have played so far, with the new signing Jeremy Doku currently favoured by Pep on the left side of the attack. Doku has hit the ground running. The 21-year-old has already found the back of the net for City in Champions League and the Premier League. And for Guardiola, he's a different kind of option to deploy on the left. See, Jack Grealish has also been injured in the early part of the season, and he may have an important role to play once he is fully recovered. And maybe by the time he ends his career at City, we might say that he was a success there. But right now, as I said, it's too early to judge, and I cannot say that he is a successful signing. And that's it. With Jack Grealish, we've done with all the signings till 2021. There were no 100 million plus signings in 2022, but in 2023 we got 5 players who signed for more than 100 million. Those were Enzo Fernandez for 121 million euros to Chelsea, Jude Bellingham for 103 million to Real Madrid, then Harry Kane for 100 million to Bayern Munich, and lastly Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, both for 117 million euros to Arsenal and Chelsea respectively. And it would be unfair to give a verdict about these players before they even spend a year in their respective clubs. Although Harry Kane and Declan Rice are looking good, Caicedo and Fernandez, well, not so good. And about Jude Bellingham, while I record this video, he has performed so well that he might just set a new benchmark for 100 million plus signings. But we will come back to these players after they spend some time in the clubs and we have a proper sample size to evaluate their performances. But still, I don't see any player who signed before 2023 for more than 100 million euros and was a proper success at their club. Although I will understand if you have an argument about Ronaldo to Juventus and Mbappe signing, but I have put my points on the video and I'll be more than happy to have a discussion on the comments. So let me know your thoughts. Would you agree with me or you completely disagree? I would love to hear from you. And yes, like the video, share with your friends and subscribe to our channel. Help out a fellow football lover. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching and see you on the next one.